Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, in previous radars, I discussed the problem of intellectual intolerance on colleges and universities. Liberal and leftist views are widespread, while conservative and libertarian views are often suppressed. Well, it's happened again. Lawrence Alexander is a professor at the University of San Diego School of Law. He is known for having co-authored an infamous article in the Philadelphia Inquirer with University of Pennsylvania law professor Amy Wax, arguing that the decline of bourgeois values in the U.S. was associated with various negative social developments. They wrote, "Get married before you have children and strive to stay married for their sake. Get the education you need for gainful employment. Work hard and avoid idleness. Get the extra mile for your employer or client. Be a patriot ready to serve the country. Be neighborly, civic-minded, charitable. Avoid coarse language in public. Be respectful of authority. Forego substance abuse and crime." Those were their general suggestions for living a productive life and promoting social wellness. That essay proved, however, to be deeply controversial and was followed by several more controversies involving Amy Wax. She was recently accused of racism after stating that perhaps Asian immigration should be curtailed, largely on the grounds that most Asian immigrants vote for Democrats.
I think it's because there is this, let's call it danger of the dominance of an Asian elite in this country. And what does that mean? What is that going to mean to change the culture? And that's not a popular idea to say that. Like, why would you ever say anything?
Well, what's the
like
danger? What would be wrong with having a lot of Chinese or of Indian or Korean engineers, physicians, computer scientists, and whatnot running around here, creating value, enlivening the society? I mean, I don't see how we lose from that. How do we lose from that?
Well, does the spirit of liberty beat in their breast, Glenn? That is my question.
So I think the view that we should limit the number of Asians we take in to be crazy and indeed racist, though I will note it is also the view of every elite college admissions program in the country, which uses affirmative action to punish Asian applicants. Nevertheless, Wax's university has already taken steps to prevent her from teaching her class, which is a blow to basic principles of academic freedom, no matter how wrong her views may be. Now, Lawrence Alexander, her co-author, is facing an even more obvious violation of basic principles of intellectual diversity. He was recently asked by the Emory Law Journal, a publication of Emory University's law school, to contribute to a Festschrift, this was a word I had to learn for the first time, on the works of Michael Perry, an Emory law professor. A Festschrift is a collection of writings intended to honor a particular scholar, even if they critique elements of that scholar's thinking. So Alexander's contribution was indeed critical of Perry's work on disparate racial impact and equal protection. "I focus on it," he writes, "not to find a bone to pick somewhere in Michael's impressive body of work, but because his error in that early work has an analog in today's political discourse, which makes that error of many years past of contemporary importance," wrote Alexander in his article, which is available at Reason.com. He writes from a conservative perspective and undoubtedly takes a view that the presumably liberal editors of the Emory Law Journal would disagree with. I disagree with plenty in it. But they did not merely register that disagreement and proceed with publication. They told Alexander the essay was racist and would have to be substantially revised. Quote, "We take issue with your conversation on systemic racism, finding your words hurtful and unnecessarily divisive," wrote Daniel Kirker, the editor-in-chief. "Additionally, there are various instances of insensitive language used throughout the essay, widespread use of the objectifying term blacks and the blacks, the discussions on criminality and heredity, and the uncited statement that thankfully racism is not an issue today. Crucially, the discussion on racism is not strongly connected to your commentary on Professor Perry's work, which is the focus of the issue and the purpose behind the publication opportunity offered." So that editor did not respond to a request for comment. Readers can take a look at the essay and judge for themselves. Speaking only for myself, and I read all of it, I have a hard time agreeing that the language is insensitive and objectifying. Alexander does indeed use the phrasing black and blacks, but he also uses white and whites and Asians. He invokes criminality and heredity merely to set the matter aside entirely, and his views on whether racism is an important issue today are certainly relevant to his rejection of Perry's philosophy. Understandably, Alexander has refused to modify the piece. "I wrote about how I see the racial situation in the U.S. today," he wrote in a statement to me. "The editors found my views to be hurtful and refused to publish them, despite the fact that I had been invited to write for a Festschrift issue in their journal." Two other contributors have withdrawn their submissions in protest of how the journal has treated Alexander. The point of the Festschrift is to include a range of perspectives on Perry. Singling out Alexander's undermines the validity of the project. Gail Harriet is a professor of law at the University of San Diego Law School and a contributor to the Volokh Conspiracy, which is a legal blog at Reason.com, where I also blog. She writes that 2 law professors, one conservative and one liberal, have withdrawn their essays from the Law Journal in protest over its treatment of Larry Alexander. 2 more professors, both of whom I believe to be left of center, have said they will publish only if they can include a blurb in front of their essays that protests the decision not to publish Larry. They do not necessarily agree with everything in his essay, but standing up for him doesn't require agreement. Quite right. University campuses should be places where vigorous disagreement is not only tolerated, it's encouraged. That's how it used to be, but too often, that's not how it is today. So I said this was a classic Robby radar, college campuses punishing, dissenting conservative views. And I played that clip of Amy Wax to highlight that I think I disagree entirely with her philosophy. I think it is fair to characterize some of the things she said as racist. She has specifically said that we should bar immigrants. I mean, she's not saying it because she will say she doesn't have a special grievance against these immigrants, but she doesn't want they're going to vote for Democrats, and that will make the country worse. So it's no good. Of course, lots of white people also vote for Democrats, so it's
could easily go try to win their votes.
No. Whoa. Hold on there, Ryan. But I read. So I was familiar with this controversy, and I knew he was a co-author of hers. So I opened this.
On her for a second. Let's applaud.
Sure.
Let's applaud your finding of the most hypocritical racist gotcha ever. You did get them because, as you said, they do discriminate. A lot of these schools do actively discriminate against Asian applicants for the precise reason that she objects to them.
Right.
And so they should be condemned just as forcefully as they're condemning her. So
thank you.
You did get them there.
Thank you. So I read Larry Alexander's essay. When I opened it, I expected to really find maybe a level of really ugly stuff that I generally have ascribed to Amy Wax's work in the past. I read through it. It's a conservative argument. No bones about it, but it wasn't particularly
It's just
offensive.
run of the mill. I haven't read it.
I thought it was run of the mill, conservative.
There's no racism. We're good.
Yeah, not there's no racism, but it's not inherent to the legal system, or trying to fix it with policies are only racist if they have a racist, not a racist result, but a racist
origin and meaning.
Right.
And
yeah, this is like classic conservative legal scholar
purpose
stuff.
rather than outcomes type of thing.
Yeah. So I didn't. So it was not egregious or anything like that. And of course, these I'm sure little Marxists running this law journal, oh no, you can't say this. This is be crazy.
Why'd they invite him in the first place?
Right.
What'd they expect him to say?
I don't know. That's the issue. Yeah, I have no idea. I reached out to them for comment to explain. They did not respond. They didn't respond to other people who've asked either. But you should look. You're going to get plenty of the liberal, progressive legal view, legal theory when you go through law school. You're going to get plenty of it. But you should also be exposed to what the other side thinks. And this is a scholar. This is a smart man presenting his view, which and you can read Gail Harriet, who writes for us at Volokh. She takes the view that Larry Alexander's view on this particular issue is totally correct with legal precedent and so forth. It's been over my head, but it was not beyond the pale at all. It was clearly not.
Right. Now, on the first case, I do think if somebody has tenure, then academic freedom means that you have to allow them to say even the most odious things. So that's what tenure means. That's what academic freedom means. I do think that you don't necessarily have a right. Not everybody has a right to be published, even if they're invited to publish. So I'm a little less sympathetic there. But I take your points that if it is as you described it, it's like this middle of the road kind of just normal conservative gripe about systemic racism, then I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it was, and I agree with you. It's not a exact I don't think his rights as a professor have been violated because this is a law journal, not the school. Obviously, if the school told him you couldn't teach this or something, then that would be an actual contractual academic freedom issue. This isn't that, but I still just think it's bad and it's worth calling out. And they probably think they can get away with it. They can tell him no, you have to revise this totally to our satisfaction. And he said, hell with you then, you can't publish it. A bunch of other people said, we're not letting you publish ours in protest. So just trying to call attention to it because I think this is a common problem.
Does it say the blacks? Blacks is one thing. The blacks is like...
It does, but not in the way...
The whites.
It says it, but not in that way. It's like it refers to a group of people and then says no, it does say, so the whites are this and the blacks are this. So it's an equivalent. It's not the if that was their only problem, they could have said, can you just take out the, because that reads a little tinier to us? Fine. Right. But it was a lot more than that.
Gotcha.
But I'm looking forward to what's on your radar coming up next.